everyone, welcome back to Pages of the Globe. Today I'm going to be reading to you the short story, The 10 Excerpts from an Annotated Bibliography on the Cannibal Women of Ratnabar Island by Nibedita. Before we start, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the author, then the story, and we'll jump straight into the story itself. So, Nibedita is a Hugo, Nebula, and Ignite Award-nominated queer Bengali writer from Calcutta, and she's also a graduate of the Clarion West 2015, whose work has appeared or is forthcoming in Uncanny, Podcastle, Nightmare, and Fireside. She accumulated a number of English degrees in India before deciding she wanted another in creative writing, and that she was going to move halfway across the world for it. These days, she can be found working as an editor while consuming large amounts of coffee and video games. She lives in New York City with her boo and their sweet, flatulent old cat, and enjoys the company of puns and potatoes, and is nearly always hungry. That is the bio from her own website, which I will link down below in the description, which is nibedita.com. Now, the story essay I will be reading is the 10 excerpts from an annotated bibliography on the Cannibal Women of Ratnabar Island. This is literally just what the title says. It is 10 excerpts, and they all come from different articles, studies, newspaper entries, whatever, about the women of Ratnabar Island. This is a very interesting essay. I haven't read one like it ever. The cool thing about it is that while it does actually seem like an essay, it's actually not. It is a short story. It's a horror fiction short story, and it's about just like colonialism in academia, monstrous appetite, and basically just lesbian cannibals. So this is not like presented as like a standard narrative. This is in the form of excerpts from the bibliography of a document detailing the consequences of like a British expedition landing on the fictitious Ratnabar Island in the Andamans. So before you hear this and you're like, oh my god, I did not know this was a real thing. It's not. It's a completely fake horror fiction short story. When I first read it, I was like, is this real? But then when I searched it up, I was like, there are no results about this. So what is going on? But it is a horror fiction short story, just in a very different way, and I honestly really enjoyed reading this short story, and I hope you enjoy listening to it. Without further ado, let's get on with the story. Remember to like, share, subscribe, and comment down below which short story you'd like to read next. 10 excerpts from an annotated bibliography on the Cannibal Women of Ratnabar Island by Nibedita. 1. Clifton Astrid. The Day the Sea Ran Red. Uncontacted Peoples of the World. Routledge Press, 1965. pp. 71-98. There are few tales as tragic as that of the denizens of Ratnabar Island. When a British expedition made landfall on its shores in 1891, they did so armed to the teeth, braced for the same hostile reception other indigenous peoples of the Andamans had given them. What they found instead was a primitive hunter-gatherer community composed of almost entirely of women and children. The savage cultural clash that followed would transmute the natives' offer of a welcoming meal into direct offense, triggering a massacre at the hands of the repulsed British. 2. Feldwin Hortensia, Roots of Evil, a headmistress's account of what would come to be known as the Churchill Dinner. Westminster Press, 1943. 3 girl children were saved from Ratnabar. 1 would perish on the sea voyage, while 2 were conducted to England as Her Majesty's wards. Of these, 1 would go on to be enrolled in the Churchill Academy, where she was given a Christian name and the promise of a life far removed from the savagery of her homeland. Regina proved herself an apt pupil, industrious, soaking up after tutelage like a sponge does ink. If prone to intemperate moods and a tendency to attach herself with sudden fits of feverish fondness to one or more of the other girls. None of us could have foreseen what she and Emma Yates whispered into each other's ears behind closed doors as they planned their foul feast. 3. Schofield Eleanor, Eating the Other. Word of the Mouth. State University of New York, 2004. pp. 56-89. It's not for a reason that women have historically been burdened with the duties of food preparation, or that it is women, not men, who are called upon to limit their appetites, shrink themselves, rein in ambitions. A hungry woman is dangerous. Men are arbiters of discourse, women the dish to be consumed. And the Ratnabari, in the exercising of their transgressive appetites, quite literally turn the tables on their oppressors. 4. Morris Victoria. Memory, Mouth, Mother. Funerary Cannibalism Among the Ratnabari. Journal of Ethnographic Theory, Volume 2, Number 2, 1994, pp. 105-129. JSTOR DOI 10.2707/46431. We are all cannibals at birth, and our mother tongue is the language of the mouth. When the Ratnabari eat their dead, they embrace what Kristeva calls the abject, the visceral, the polluted, the blood and bile and placenta and the unclean flesh we associate with the female body. Return to us, they say to their dead. Be with us always. Science has yet to explain how it is that they almost never bear sons, only daughters, but it is scarce to be wondered at that their society is matriarchal in nature, for they spurn the clean rational world of the patriarchal symbolic, remaining locked in a close, almost incestuous relationship with the maternal semiotic instead. Number 5. Aspiotti Eli. A Love That Devours, Emma Yates and Regina Gore. A History of 20th Century Lesbians, edited by Jenna Atskin. Palgrave Macmillan, 2009, pp. 180-195. What is it about love that makes us take leave of our senses? What makes a girl of barely 17 carve fillets of flesh from her ribs and, lacing her clothes back over the bulk of soaked bandages, serve her own stewed flesh to a table of her classmates at her wealthy private school? Number 6. Rainer Richard, a rebuttal of recent rumors heard among the populace. The Times, 24th April 1904, page 14. Every rag barely worth the paper it is printed on has pounced on the regrettable happenings at Churchill Academy, and as such salacious reportings is wont to do, this has had an impact on the minds of the impressionable youth. A rash of imitative new fads in the area of courtship, such as presenting a lover with a hair from one's head, or clipping a fingernail to consume, perhaps even shaving of skin or blood sucked from a prickled finger. As to the rumors that the Ratnabari gain shape-shifting powers through the consumption of human flesh, or that they practice a form of virgin birth, I can say with certainty that these are pure exaggeration, and that their proponents are likely muddling real events with the mythological figure of the Rakashi, a female demon from the Orient. Number 7. Gore Shalini. The sublatern will speak if you shut up and listen. Interviews in Intersectionality by Shafat Shahbandari and Harold Singh, 2012. The problem is that we have everyone and their maiden aunt dropping critique on Ratnabar, though we are not hearing from us, the Ratnabari diaspora, ourselves. If I have to deal with one more white feminist quoting Kristeva at me, no. The real problem is that our goals are fundamentally different. They want to wring significance from our lives, and we want to just find a way to live. There's not a lot of us, but we exist. We're here. We don't always see quite eye to eye with each other's ideology, but we're not going anywhere, and we have to figure out what we are to each other and how we can live side by side. So why aren't we getting published? Number 8. Gore Rupskatha, A Daughter's Confession, The Collected Letters of Rupkatha Gore, edited by Mary Anolik. Archon Books 2010, pages 197 to 216. Mother didn't know. What Emma was planning, what was in the food that night, any of it. I've kept the secret for so many years, but now that she's long gone and I am old, I feel I can tell it at last, at least to you, my darling, and if only so I can pass it beyond this world free of its weight. Why did Emma do it? Does it matter? Love, foolishness, a hunger to believe in magic and power, a twisted obsession with Mother's supposed exotic origins. What does it matter? She did it. The truth is, I'm grateful. Whatever her motives, the meal gave Mother what she needed to escape that place, and I wouldn't have been born without it, though that's another story altogether. You could say a little bit of Emma lives on in me, even after all this time. Number 9, Gore Shalini, We Can Never Go Home. Hungry Diasporas, Annual Humanities Colloquium, May 2008, Princeton University, Princeton, New Jersey. We know Ratnabar's coordinates. Aerial reconnaissance has confirmed people still live on the island. But how do I set foot on its shores with my English accent and my English clothes and not have them flee from me in the terror that was taught to them in 1891? Where do we go, descendants of the stolen ones, trapped between two islands and belonging on neither, too brown for English sensibilities, too alien now for the home of our great-grandmothers? How shall we live with Ratnabar in our blood, but English on our tongues? Number 10, Gaur Ashanti, Dead and Delicious II. Eat what you want, and if people don't like it, eat them too. Bitch Media, 2nd November, 2016. Accessed December 8th, 2017. My cousin Shalini is an optimist. She believes in keeping the peace, getting along, and not rocking the boat. What do I believe in? I think, let's be real, ladies, who among us hasn't sometimes had a craving to eat the whole damn world? You know which of you I'm talking to. Yes, you out there. You tried so hard to be good, to not be too greedy. You made yourself small and you hoped they'd like you better for it. But they didn't, of course, because they're the ones who are insatiable, who take everything you have to give them and still hunger for more. It's time to stop making ourselves small, and above all, remember, there may be more of them, but we don't need them to make more of us. Submitted for Professor Blackwood's Sociology 402 class by Ranita Gore. All right, so that was the 10 excerpts from an annotated bibliography on the Cannibal Women of Ratnabar Island by Nibedita. Just to remind you of basically what it was about, it's a horror fiction short story, and it's about colonialism in academia, monstrous appetites, and this is according to Sen herself, and, oh yes, lesbian cannibals. Now, this is not presented as a standard narrative. The story is in form of excerpts from the bibliography of a document detailing the consequences of a British expedition landing on the fictitious Ratnabar Island in the Andamans. This story was a finalist for the Nebula Award for the Best Short Story in 2019 and the 2020 Hugo Award for Best Short Story. I loved this essay so much, or short story, sorry. It was so good. I found this in the Best American Science Fiction and Fantasy of 2020 series or book, I'm not sure, by Dia Gabaldon, who is the author of Outlander, actually. And I really loved it. It was so interesting. And it was honestly one of my favorite stories I have probably ever shared on this channel before. Especially because I genuinely did not think this was I thought this was an actual island, and I was so confused I was like, I've never heard of this. This is insane. I need to do more research on this. But I was very surprised to know this is a short story, and I loved how she wrote it so much. So just to give you a little bit more detailed overview of the story, we find out obviously we're finding things about this fictitious island in parts and in pieces because this is from other sources, right? So we learned that a British expedition arrives at Ratnabar Island in 1891 and they find a primitive society of mostly women and children. They offer a welcoming meal, but that kind of turns into a cultural offense which is triggered by a massacre by the British. A massacre. Now, 3 girl children are saved, quote unquote, and they become wards of the crown and are given Christian names and enrolled in Churchill Academy, where they basically plan this foul feast. Women are generally burdened by food-related chores, but the Ratnabar women, in indulging in their transgressive appetites, turn the tables on their oppressors, and they say that it's time to stop making ourselves small. So the structure of the story is obviously an annotated bibliography, and in other words, just short paragraphs or summaries of various references, including applicable quotes. This kind of bibliography is generally produced for use in papers that require extensive supporting documentation, like theses and dissertations. Taken together, these annotations form a fairly aggressive manifesto calling on women and girls to turn the tables on their oppressors and basically just eat the world. I loved this. It's a very creative story structure, and the extras come together to produce theme and meaning for the work. However, at this point, this isn't either creative or original theme. I love this so much. I thought it was so creative. As you can see, most of the actual excerpts are just saying that, oh, these women are awful, they're cannibals. But it's very obvious what the author's trying to hint at. They took these women from their own indigenous island, from where they were used to, and quote unquote saved them and did so much for them, and they were super offended when they planned this foul feast and they did all of this awful stuff. And so, but you can kind of see the irony in this, because it's you weren't saving these people, you were kidnapping them from their home, forcing them to be completely different from what they've seen, and they have no idea what they're doing. One of my favorite parts of this story was when they kind of start talking about when Shalini Gore, the 7th entry, comes in, because I remember I was reading hers and I was like, wow, this is so interesting. And then I read the next one and I remember saying Gore Rupkata. I was like, oh, she has the same last name as this author. And at first I was like, oh, there's no connection though, I don't understand. Until I read Ashanti Gore's entry. And that's when I started piecing together that Ashanti, Rupkata, Shalini, all of these people are the original, so Regina or Emma's descendants from Ratnabar Island. And I really loved how in all the other entries were just oh my god, these people are awful cannibals. But instead of talking about how their own heritage were awful cannibals, they instead comment on the world and how they, first of all, colonized their own, some culture that had never been exposed to the outside world before, and then were offended and were mad when they had completely different practices than they did. And they talk about how they don't understand where to go now, because I really loved what Ashanti was talking about, or not Ashanti, Shalini, when she says, how shall we live with Ratnabar in our blood but English on our tongues? So she's basically just too foreign for Ratnabar Island, but she's too brown for English sensibilities. And I really loved that commentary that she gave. And I think it symbolizes so many important things, mainly just being, as Nibedita said herself, colonialism in academia. And something that they were constantly talking about, which I'm sure Nibedita can relate to as she is queer, is they were all these Britishers and all these articles were talking about how they were all lesbians and it was just awful, and they were very rowdy and wild. And they're just seen as these stupid people who have no idea what's going on, when in reality they have their own cultures and they have their own customs. And I'm sure if we were to go, and she's kind of trying to hint at how we also have our own strange customs, and if someone from a completely different planet came and who had never been exposed to us before and had completely different customs, they would probably think the same of us as we did of the obviously fictitious Ratnabar Island. But that is it for today. Remember to like, share, subscribe, and comment down below which short story you would like to read next.